in this scenario where I fall pregnant and I'll need to go away at some point because we've had these stories.
Yeah.
Mtu alienda, unarudi kwa ofisi unapata kazi ilienda. Ama unarudi kidogo because now you need to take the baby to the clinic nini at some point unaambiwa
When it comes to maternity, for example, if you leave, you've left for your maternity leave, which is 90 days. And then you come back and then you're told that you're terminated. What are the grounds of termination? So then you'll follow on that route.
Yeah.
So it was an unfair termination and it was discrimination and all that. So you'll be asking for damages and all that grounded on the termination itself because it was unfair, you know. You can actually get justice. We've seen like so many cases that have gone to court and some have been settled out of court anyway. Yeah, that you cannot just do that. You're protected in terms of you have a right to come back to work. Yes.
Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to our channel. In our episode today, I have a guest who is a lawyer who specializes in labor law and policies. But a backstory for why this conversation. So in the world we are living in today, women are taking up their space and getting work done. And they're doing a very good job at it. But at the end of the day, the struggles are still there. Kidogo too, when it comes to women and what their rights are in their workplace. So that's the reason for this conversation today. So I have Jacqueline with us today, who's a lawyer, again, I mentioned, specializing in labor law and policies. And she's here to talk to us about the wins that you're experiencing, because there are some wins. If you're taking up spaces in the workplace, it means there's something that's good happening there. And then the struggles and how we as women, we can keep pushing forward. Jacqueline, karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for creating time to be with us today.
Yes.
Let me tell you, before I even allow you to introduce yourself, when I first... When I was having a conversation with Mukami, because Mukami is my content producer, and we sit and brainstorm content and what it is that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
And she mentioned this conversation because you had met somewhere.
Yes.
Yes. And then the first time she mentioned about it, I was like, Ati? But actually I told her, Ebu rudia tena.
Yeah.
Ebu rudia tena. Because I am a worker. Am I not?
You are.
And I have been a worker for a long time. But I really doubt if I have ever sat down and actually thought about my rights as a worker and what the law says about it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was like, this will be an interesting conversation. I'm here to learn, and we learn plus with our audience. So please, Jacqueline, before I ask my questions, many questions. Please introduce yourself.
So as you've said, Jacqueline Wambui Wamayo. I like adding those two names.
Yes.
So as you've said, I'm a labor lawyer. I currently work as a regional coordinator for Sub-Saharan Africa for an organization called the International Lawyers Assisting Workers Network. So this is just a network of lawyers across the globe working every day to ensure that workers' rights are protected and also trade union rights.
Okay.
So we have over now, I think, 1,300 lawyers across the globe. So they are really working on workers' rights issues every day. But also I do a lot of research as policy and I love that space, and that's what I do every day. Yeah.
Awesome. Karibu sana.
Asante.
So now, unajua, this world of world yenu ya wawakili, the conversations and the lingo can get very complicated.
Yes, but I'll try as much as possible not to be very technical. Yes.
So I'm hoping now for I'm hoping to keep the questions quite light.
Yes.
But also in your explanations to keep them also very, because hapa speaking for myself. Yeah. Tunataka tuelewe what the law says about us.
Yeah.
From a very simple perspective, from like a layman, people who don't understand what law is all about. Yeah.
But you may be surprised that the law is actually from what the society is. when you read it, it's somewhat complex, but it's the everyday experiences of what we are going through, but also at least it makes sure that there are some protections here and there. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So, from today's conversation, the chat that you're going to have, what is the one thing? What are you looking for our audience to take away from our conversation today?
I think one of the things I'm looking forward to is that after having these conversations, people, but especially women, because that's your target, will understand some of the rights they actually have, but not only understand, but they can actually exercise them, but also start taking note of some of the rights they have, but also some of the struggles and challenges that are there, even when the law is there. And also, I think I'll also be mentioning some of the experiences that I've gathered over time. And maybe it will empower one woman or two somewhere. But also, if we'll be having some policymakers as part of our followers, then I think there are things that policymakers need to do in terms of improving the lives of a working woman.
Awesome. All right, and to my first question.
Yes.
I've written quite a few. So my first question is, have you noticed more women owning up their space at work, in the workplace lately?
I think there have been changes, just reflecting back in terms of when we were growing up and the kind of jobs that our mothers used to do, our aunties used to do. Things have really changed because there are some jobs that even when we were in school, we thought that these are male kind of jobs. For example, engineering, someone would be told, oh my God, that needs strength, you know. Construction sector, manufacturing sector, you'd find people associating some of these areas to a certain gender. If you talk about care work, if you talk about domestic service sector, or even the hospitality sector, you'll find it more women are encouraged to apply for such kind of jobs. But we've seen things are changing. We are seeing more women-led organizations in the tech space, in policy spaces, in manufacturing sector. We are seeing more organizations that are women-led, which is quite exciting, I would say. Because sometimes you just look at some of the successful, maybe even startups in the tech space or even in the NGO world, you find that we are having more women taking leadership roles. But not only at that level, at the CEO level, even in our politics, you know, we are seeing more women are getting into these roles. But also in different sector, even in the financial sector. So I think there's been a lot of changes, but also it is attributed to the steps that we've taken as a country. But I would also like to recognize that these steps did not just fall to us. Like it took years of activism. I know that you've read about different, or even heard about different women doing their thing when we were growing up. And now some of us are actually enjoying the fruits of their labor. I always say that sometimes I like making this joke that I am who I am because of the women who brought me up and women who really believed in women education. Because otherwise there are situations, or there are some years back that, but it's not even years back, actually even up to now, you find situations where young women or girls, let me not call them women, but girls who are in school, and the only thing that they are dreaming about is getting married. And we have societies that also encourage that, you know, like after you finish your maybe Form 4 or Class 8, the next thing that you're thinking about is getting married, you know, and not necessarily talking about what's your career, what would you like to do as a woman, who inspires you and all that. But we've seen a lot of changes over the years, which I think I'm really happy to see.
Me too. Go us. But in the recent past, have you had like any finally moments in the labor law, especially when it comes now to women's rights in the workplace?
Yes, I think I have a few, and I would like to start from 2019 at the global level. I remember that the conversations around gender-based violence, especially sexual harassment in the workplace, has been such a hot topic over the years. And there was no international law at that level that actually governs violence and harassment at the workplace. But in 2019, when the International Labour Organization, which is an organization that adopts standards to govern the world of work, finally adopted Convention 190 on violence and harassment in the workplace. That was like a huge step in terms of ensuring that at least women, not actually only women, but everybody has the right to a space or a workspace free of violence and harassment. I think that was a major step. But of course, it's a step, yes, in terms of, yes, we have that international law, but then how are women experiencing these big change or a game changer at the international level, even at the grassroots level, or every day in the informal economy, in the workspaces, even us, like where we are right now, in the cyberspace that you operate in, how do we ensure that now women can actually exercise this right or can actually enjoy a workspace that is free of violence and harassment? So for me, that was a game changer. We still have countries that we are still pushing for Kenya to ratify. I recently had the president saying that there are 2 conventions probably that are going to be ratified. So ratification is the adoption of a country saying that now we want this to become part of the law of the country. And with that, then we are going to take steps in ensuring now the safety of workers in the world of work. Because why I celebrate this adoption, it's because it views the workplace as the world of work. When you're commuting to work, when someone is interning, you are an intern, when you're a consultant in the cyberspace, every worker, despite their employment relationship, they are actually supposed to be protected. So that's like a very huge step, because if you look at labor law normally just most of the time, more often than not, protects just employees who have formal contracts. And that's where our laws are based in. But this particular convention acknowledge that now we are talking about the world of work. And we're talking about content creators who are in the world of work, in the broader sense of what workspace looks like,
including
when you're
the
commuting.
mama mboga.
Exactly, including the mama mboga, the boda boda brothers and sisters of ours, you know, like everywhere, even in matatu, the conductors and all that. So that was a major step, but Kenya is yet to ratify it, and I hope that eventually we are going to ratify it. Yes.
So
that is one. Yes.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Is there another
But yeah,
one
no. Maybe I'll talk about it later. But that was a major, wow moment for me.
I'm just wondering. So at the moment, say I'm in an office, I work there.
Yes.
I am in HR, and I have a colleague mwenye ananisumbua. And I am not. They're throwing the knees at me, and I'm like, no. Because that would be classified as sexual harassment, right?
Yes.
So if I am to report them, what happens? So
that is where the complexity starts, because the Employment Act mandates the employer to adopt a sexual harassment policy. Then it needs to define what sexual harassment is, and then what is the procedure in terms of reporting and all that. So there are so many things that needs to be taken into consideration that are not necessarily even in the law. And sometimes some of these wins have been won in collective bargaining agreements, where you have like very clear, because some of the policies that you see some companies adopt, sometimes they lack the reporting mechanism. Or even if they have the reporting mechanism, there is no protection of the person who is reporting. So, and you know, sexual harassment is a power relation kind of an offense. So it's about power. It's about me having the ability to fire you if you're not going to accept my advances, you know, my sexual advances to be specific. It's me being in a position like I'm a man, you're a woman, so you're more in a like I can have control somewhat over you. But then it's also complexities around third party. For example, you've gone to a hotel as a client, but then you have the housekeepers. And then now you have the employer. So you have the guests, you have the hotel keeper, and then you have the housekeeping people, and then now you have the employer. So that's a triangular relationship that is not necessarily regulated under probably policies or law. The law currently in Kenya does not necessarily recognize that, especially the labor law. So you find a situation where, let's say a guest just comes in, and this is a story anyway that I had sometimes back when I was working, and these workers just came, and just to elaborate the kind of experiences they have. This was a man, because sometimes when you talk about sexual harassment, men are like, but also men experience sexual harassment, which is true. So this guy came to me and explained to me that there was this person who came, she was high profile person, and then she came in and she stayed in the bed, and then she was playing some pornographic material on the TV, and then she was almost naked. And at first he was shocked because he didn't know how to react, but at the end of the day he needs to clean the room. And the lady started approaching him. And then at that particular moment, he didn't even know what to do. But then he had to excuse himself and then gather all the courage to just go and report it. But he says that most of the time, they always find a way of dealing with such a scenario. But let me not digress. Let me come back to the complaint mechanism. So yes, you've reported, depending on how well the complaint mechanism have been structured. So you're supposed to report, then investigations are supposed to be done, and then depending whether you want to be known or not to be, because sometimes women have oftenly said that they do not necessarily want to be involved in the whole process, so they want to be protected. But then sometimes you find that the person who you're supposed to report to is actually the perpetrator. So you're left with very little to do, or even the person that you're reporting is way above the HR, let's say, and they wonder what maybe it's the CEO, for example, and you're reporting to the HR. Sometimes they don't even know how to handle such kind of a situation. So, and that's why regulating sexual harassment in the workplace then becomes quite complex. But then this needs consultation with the workers, and also if there's a union, the workplace is unionized, then we have the committee at the shop level, at the industry level, who are supposed to take up some of these issues and make sure that at least you're protected one, that you're not going to lose your job, because there are so many instances that people report and then they lose their jobs. And then sometimes, even if they report, nothing is done. So you're left with, are you going to proceed to the court? Then the other issue that women bring up is that I don't want to be part of a litigation process. It's I'm already struggling with the impact of this sexual harassment. I don't want to go through that process again. So all that I want is for the sexual harassment to just stop. So you find that most victims or survivors always push for, the feeling of, I just want it to stop. I just want a safe space. I just
want him to stop,
I want myself to be in a position to work and to be productive at the workplace and to be there. I don't want every time that I think about that I'm going to this workplace, I feel that it's a toxic workplace. It's a workplace that I cannot deliver. I cannot be myself because, as you said, there are different kind of advances. Someone is saying hi to you and they're already doing funny things. They're always commenting of your physical appearances and all that.
Okay. So what's one right or opportunity you wish women knew they had at work?
It's hard to choose.
Okay.
So women generally in the both informal and the formal economy, because you find that our laws our 2007 labor laws are primarily target the employees, whoever has a formal contract, you know, and then it leaves 80%, over actually 80%. Kenya right now, we are at around 84% of workers who are in the informal economy.
Yeah.
This means that you have no protection whatsoever. You don't even have like basic, you don't have access. You may have the rights, but you do not have access.
Yeah.
But then our constitution, Article 41, specifically says every person have a right to fair labor practices. Most people overlook that. So it talks about everyone generally. And then it goes down to say that every worker has the right to freedom of association and collective bargaining. That means that you can join a guild, you can go join an association, you can join a trade union, you can, you know, and also like formation, if you're a new like industry, and then you have a right to form and join the union, trade union of your choice. And then you have a right to strike, you have a right to fair wages and all conditions at work. But what's the reality? Most people do not know that they can actually have this right, or they are supposed even to exercise some of these rights, even fair pay. For example, sometimes you hear content creators saying, just because I'm a woman, just because I'm black, then if it's a platform that is what do you guys call it? The one that can pay.
A platform that you can monetize.
Exactly, that is monetized. Then you find that the way the platform is monetizing depends on various factors.
Yeah.
So you find that your colleagues doing the same content with the same followers and all that, maybe in America or something like that, they are earning very different.
It is our reality. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
They are earning like very different from what you're earning.
Yes.
And sometimes it goes further in terms of just your gender, you know. But then the constitution is very clear that you're supposed to be given like equal pay for work of equal value in terms of pay. But then there are also all these other protection. Like there was a time that I was talking to someone who actually has like a formal contract, and then they were pregnant, and they didn't know that they have a right to maternity leave.
Yes.
And I was like, how don't you know that you have a right to maternity leave? Even the ones that you say that they are basic, we have like an assumption that everybody knows, but some people do not necessarily know that they have actually a right to maternity protection, or even a right that they can actually join whatever organization that they want to join. Because for me, that is the starting point to push for reforms, to push for better working conditions, to push for any kind of issues that are rising up in the world of work generally. Yes.
Okay. I've heard of when you speak of trade unions, the only thing I know is COTU.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because we have like so many unions, even in the creative economy sector. We have the musicians union, for example. So we have like I don't have a number on top of my head, but we have unions that are sectoral. So you have, for example, the union of Kudaiha, which organizes domestic workers, education institutions workers, hotel workers, and so on. Yeah. We have communication workers union. You have metal union. You have, you have...
So in every sector.
In every sector generally. Yeah. And also recently, we also have now the digital workers union, which is the gig workers union. Yes. Now we are having like new sectors that are also becoming organized in a trade union.
For the gig work, that is where I am.
Yes.
Is it the one that was launched Judy? It's another one. There's another one.
So there's a trade union. I don't know, maybe we're talking about the same thing, very different. Yeah. So we have associations. We have the Content Creators Association that was, I think, launched the other day.
Yes.
Even the Kenya Union of Gig Workers is recent. It's not an old union. So it was just launched some few months ago.
Really? How am I in this place and I don't?
You don't know.
I know about the one that was launched.
The Content Creators.
Yes, but you see, also
that's an association.
It's not that's even an association. Yeah. And the fact that the reason why we would know is because it's our colleagues are,
Yeah.
telling us on their pages.
Yeah.
But about the gig work, you see, Mukami, do you know about that one?
Which one?
The Kenya Union?
The Kenya Union of Gig Workers.
Of gig workers?
Yeah.
No.
Did you know there was a union like that
Yeah.
that existed?
There's a union that is organizing content moderators, content
Creators.
content creators, content.
Influencers.
Yeah, I think their scope. I've not really gotten so much
Yeah.
into the scope of workers that they organize, but they are organizing in this now the digital economy that is coming up. Yes, and then we have the data labelers. Data labelers actually have even an association that is actually woman-led also.
Really?
Yeah, the president is a woman.
It's very interesting. That's why I told you. Like, the first time we had this conversation with Mukami, I was like, hey, Ati, I was like, hey. I don't think I've ever actually even sat down to ever think of my rights as a worker in this country. And especially now that we are part of the creative economy.
Yes.
And which is something that's still very new in the space. And people are still trying to understand exactly where we lie. Where do we classify them?
Yeah,
which
so-
sector? Which
yes.
industry? What is
Yes.
happening this year?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to know that there's a union.
Yeah.
The Kenya Union of Gig Workers. Interesting. I'll look into it.
Okay, please do.
I'll look into it.
I think it's also it has also like a woman leader. I think we're also seeing, and this takes me back to what are the wins. Women are also, like, taking the spaces in different ways.
Yeah.
They are organizing other women to push for better working conditions,
Yeah.
and they know what kind of experiences that they are having and what they really need. What would for example, if you're teleworking, if you're working from home, what does that mean for you as a woman? If you're experiencing abuse, if you're experiencing domestic violence at work, at home, and you're teleworking, what does that mean for you? To what level are you protected by the law? And to what level should you be protected? What are the gaps in terms of your level of protection? The mental health aspect also. There's also like an issue of mental health in terms of, especially for content creators. There was a time I was involved in a research, and one of the things that they were raising, the content creators, is about the like effect. So you're waiting, maybe the contract that you signed has like what is it called? Like you have to attract this kind of likes or something like that.
There's
Exactly.
a clause on KPIs.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you then become anxious in terms of making sure that you have to make sure that you have to have these likes and all that. But at times you're bullied, you go all kind of experiences. Someone doesn't like how you've dressed up, or they don't just like your voice or anything about you, or you even get yourself into, like, there's so many things that happen. And we've not even our policies and our legal framework have not even started to address some of these challenges. Right now, as we speak, our labor laws do not necessarily reflect the realities of the digital economy.
Yes.
Yet, this is a space that so many women are getting into as opportunities. When the e-hailing started in Kenya, we saw women becoming drivers. It was very rare for you to just walk around Nairobi and see a woman taxi driver.
I still get very excited when I order an Uber and it's a lady
It's a
driver.
lady.
I still get very excited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's opening up the space. It's providing opportunities for women to get into. But the question is, like, what are the experiences even while these spaces are opening? Yeah.
You mentioned something. You spoke about a lady who didn't know that they had a right to maternity leave.
Yeah.
And I know that one, she's not the only one. Most of us probably don't know that. Kama mkubwa amesema after wiki mbili utarudi because of fear of losing your job.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
even paternity.
Exactly. Even paternity.
Yeah.
Yes, paternity leave, yes. And some of the conversations we've had, or stories we've had out here are like, but she's a mom. But she's a mom.
Yeah.
And that becomes a reason for her not to be promoted.
Yeah.
But she's pregnant. Because even there are stories we've heard about women becoming pregnant and then that getting to a point of in the office, like if she was to be promoted, she's now no longer going to be promoted because si amepata mimba, si anaenda hata kwa hapa kwa ofisi. What does the law say about such situations?
In terms of everyone is supposed to be given equal opportunity without discrimination whatsoever. Actually, that's a ground for even like suing a company or an organization because you're being discriminated on the grounds that you're pregnant. The law is very clear in terms of everybody has a right to A, B, C, and D. Like you're supposed, at the workplace, you're not supposed to be discriminated on any grounds, may it be race and all that. So if for example, someone is being discriminated, and this is because some people would say that he will not be in a position to do the work.
Yes.
But then you see this is a form of social protection because the labor law is supposed to ideally protect you before you get into the labor market, because you're not supposed to be discriminated before you get into the labor market. So you're supposed to be offered the same opportunity as long as you're qualified for the job. When you are at work, you're not supposed to be discriminated whatsoever. And reproduction is part of humanity.
Yes.
So you're not you are protected. Now that's a form of social protection by the law being very clear in terms of there's maternity leave and also like paternity leave. But then you find that sometimes women access maternity leave, but when they come back, maybe there was a position even they had applied for in terms of promotion.
Yes, and they were very qualified for.
Exactly, and then they were very qualified for, but they apparently do not get the promotion. In the creative economy, for example, if you are shooting, let's say, a movie or something, then you become pregnant. What happens to that person? Do they get changed, or what happens? And will they take their role when they come back? And how does it even look like?
Yes.
So it's so. So it's quite interesting, but also like what is sad is that when now you're in the informal economy, you cannot even access. You cannot access some of these rights and protections because the law does not necessarily protect you. So if you're, let's say, mama mboga, a street vendor and all that, it's your business. Uko peke yako, you have like to sort yourself out. And that's why you see like women, even after 1 week or 2 weeks, they're back in the streets, even without healing. They have to come back and they have to continue working. Some have to give up their career altogether to just go home and take care of their kids and all that. But back to the mom question, then sometimes you find scenarios, and I've heard of these through research, you'll find that sometimes the kind of job, quote unquote, they say that does Nani has kids? You know, like, do you have kids? Sometimes you even ask, even during interviews, how many kids do you have? Even they go ahead and ask you, do you want to have kids in the future? How soon are you planning to have kids in the future? Just to assess whether will it be a liability, quote unquote liability from our end, and should we even be considering like hiring you because you have the potential of becoming pregnant, or even you are already a mom, because it means, and then they ask you, how old are your kids? Age 1 to 5. Of course, if you're a mom, you know, like you're in hospital like day in, day out sometimes, and then that means that they'll need leave days over and over again because of their kids. They have to pick their kids. They have to do, my kid, amepata homa and all that. Sometimes they'll say that this job needs your whole self into it, and then you don't have, you know, like you have like so much.
I'm just wondering, are those questions legal? Like, can I, like, why do, like, I was just trying to understand, because like, when are they, like, are those questions, I don't know if legal is the right word to use, but I'm trying to understand if there's a way, like, you cannot not give me the job because I said I was a mom.
Yeah, that's a discrimination. But the problem is, how will you know? Like, how would you even justify that the employer made the decision
not to give me
based
work
on
because of
the questions that they asked? But you can always tell. I think there's a way that you can always, depending on the line of questioning and how the interview is going, you can always tell that this is the kind of information they are trying to get out of me to give me this kind of job.
So going back, you say there are laws that protect us as women from discrimination in any way, and generally every worker.
Yeah.
But in this scenario where I fall pregnant and I'll need to go away at some point, because we've had these stories.
Yeah.
Mtu alienda, unarudi kwa ofisi unapata kazi ilienda. Ama unarudi kidogo kidogo, because now you need to take the baby to the clinic, nini. At some point unaambiwa,
we cannot handle it.
Yes, ama they just make the work environment very harsh for you, so you just decide to leave.
Exactly.
Kivyako.
Yeah.
So that you don't sue them of all these things. So how easy is it for me in that scenario to go and report this issue and actually get any form of compensation? Yeah.
I wouldn't use the term easy because it's about the circumstances and of course it's about proof. So you have to prove. But then when it comes to maternity, for example, if you leave, you've left for your maternity leave, which is 90 days. And then you come back and then you're told that you're terminated. What are the grounds of termination? So then you'll follow on that route.
Yeah.
So it was an unfair termination and it was discrimination and all that. So you'll be asking for damages and all that grounded on the termination itself because it was unfair, you know. So in that, then you can actually get justice. We've seen like so many cases that have gone to court and some have been settled out of court anyway. Yeah, that you cannot just do that. You're protected in terms of you have a right to come back to work. Yes. In terms of being employed, then now that becomes even more trickier because now you have to make a lot of connection in terms of I was the most qualified. Then you have to have proof. Where is that proof coming from? Then it needs to come now from your potential employer. Yes. So there are all these considerations that you have to make, but you can easily get compensation if you prove that the grounds of terminations were unfair and it was based on you going for maternity leave.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you even find that they will not even wait for you to come back. You'll actually be terminated even before.
When you're still at home.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible for the law to shift some of these outdated mindsets, like when it comes to women in the workplace? Because you see, when someone says, "Hey, when someone is asking me all these questions about me and how many kids I have and how many kids I plan to have in the future," and that is an outdated mindset.
Yeah.
Like it's possible for a woman to be everything, like
competitive, productive,
bear children and come back to work and still deliver and do a good job. So do you think that we will ever get to a point where the law has enabled like the workplace a shift in the mindset? Yes.
Let me start even outside the law. Just giving you an example, there's this market in Uganda. I think it hosts like 7,000 traders. And I was reading an article where they were saying that men fear us. And they were in a position to have a mechanism that even the men would not even dare sexually harass anyone in that market. And they had a system in a way that they had like different sectors, like different zones in the market, but then also ensure that there's a disciplinary process. And if you're found guilty, then you're fined. I think it was around $10 to $15. And then they can even expel you or even suspend you from the market. And then eventually, then the perpetrators, I don't want to say men because I'm just trying to be sensitive on that also. Then they would not want to to get themselves in that situation that they're actually going to lose their work with their work. Actually, it's losing their job because there was that kind of a structure. So eventually what that does, and they say that men fear us, it's because of having like a very well thought, elaborated structure in terms of this. We cannot tolerate this kind of behavior. We cannot tolerate sexual harassment in this market space. But then it took a lot of awareness raising for women in the market to come to a level of saying, okay, fine, yeah, I think this, whatever that we've been experiencing, sometimes it's even so normalized there. You find there's some actions that are very normalized in spaces that people do not even realize that it's wrong. You know, once you call them out, they are like, what do you mean that hiyo ni kawaida, you know, like sasa hata nisicomment venye unakaa sijui nini nisikwambie kwa sababu that's the way that we've been you know, we've been brought up and all that, and then when they get themselves in trouble, then they realize, oh wow, so this was actually serious. And sometimes you find that once even everyone is empowered, including a potential perpetrator, then they are even become aware of, oh, okay, there's a law on this, I'm not supposed to do this. Then the mindset starts shifting. Pole. Yeah. But then it will involve a lot of things. So it's not just a law to be passed just for it to be there. Yes. So you need a law that can actually be implemented and enforced. So, and how is it even going to be enforced? Can people even have access to such kind of enforcement? When the law was being developed, did we even engage different stakeholders, the people who are affected? For example, if Kenya, for example, wants to ratify Convention 190 on violence and harassment in the world of work, they're supposed to do consultations and all that. If you want to implement that in the informal economy, you need to understand the informal economy and the structures that exist, and also the structures that do not exist, and what are you going to do? And some of the solutions are not even, they are beyond legal. Yes, you're going to regulate, but then you need to create awareness. So then you need a bigger policy, and then now you annex now the legal way as a solution, but then you have other interventions that go in tandem with the legal aspect. But then even, for example, gender stereotyping, for example, if you're in a workplace and then you're in a workplace that maybe you're a board member, and then you go for a board meeting, and then the men expect you to serve them because you're a woman. It's a workplace culture. But then if you're not empowered to even call out some of these things as they are, then you would not even enjoy your rights as a woman. Then at the end of the day, the gender stereotyping will continue manifesting itself in the workplace, even if you have like access and all these rights that you're guaranteed under even internal policies. At the end of the day, it will continue being perpetuated. But then it needs someone who can actually exercise these rights and a HR system that actually recognizes the rights that are there and make sure that people are aware. But then these will not take like an individual. It takes organizing. It takes people coming together and all that. Yeah.
Actually, that answers my next question. Because my next question was now for our friends in the informal sector, for the workers in the informal sector, and I'm thinking of my mama mboga, and I'm thinking of my favorite boda boda guy, and I'm wondering, so if something is not right in their area of work, how do they make sure that they are heard? Yes.
I wouldn't want to push that to them because it starts also like with the change of policies and the legal framework. Because as I had mentioned, the Constitution, yes, protects every worker, but then the laws that are supposed to implement the Constitution do not reflect that reality. So you'll find that you have to prove you have a contract. How is this your employer? You find sometimes you're even in the formal economy, you find people like in a triangular relationship, for example. They work, for example, a security person work for an outsourcing company, but then they get harassed in apartment here. Who is supposed to be even liable in such a triangular relationship? Because you almost have to employers, where you work, but then the person you have a contract with.
Yes.
And Kenya right now still does not have such kind of a law. South Africa at least has, but Kenya, we still don't have that. So we still have those people who would call in the formal economy, but then they are not protected. They are still precarious, outsourcing, due to outsourcing and all that. Even in the digital economy, what the digital economy has done is that it has also like come to, we are almost going back to where labor was a commodity. Where labor is commodified. You're not human. You like labor is just seen like just come and you're in the wheel of making profit and all that.
Yeah.
But then if you have now a legal framework that recognizes, okay, these are the challenges. And at the international level, again, let me go back. We have recommendation 204, which is on the informal economy. And it sets out like guidelines in terms of if a member state wants to formalize the informal economy, to bring protections and all these are the things that needs to happen. So that is on the policy level. But as you know, things do not just come out of the blues. They have to be like some advocacy, some lobbying, some pushing and all that, some well thought out model laws, even like, for example, and that's why I come back now to the issue of there's need of organizing at that sectoral level. So you'll find that there's domestic workers organizing, street vendors organizing and pushing for, then they have trainings in terms of paralegal training, empowerment, just to understand what are the rights that they have. Whom do they go to if they feel that their rights are being violated? For example, their right to work. Does a street vendor in Kenya have the right to work in the streets? Can they just be chased out? And you've seen the way street vendors are always in a cut and rat, like the harassment and all that. So if all these rights, if they know that they have a right to all these, then where do they seek redress? But then you cannot do that as a one single person.
Or it has to be through now.
Then you need to organize yourselves. So the best form of organizing would be a union, but also we've seen like different ways of how workers are organizing themselves to push back and also to demand recognition of the law, but also changes of policies and how they are treated and also that. And also they've gone to court. They've used strategic litigation to access rights that they never thought that they would access. For example, a good case is South Africa, where domestic workers now have the right to compensation on issues to do with occupational health and safety at work. Yeah, so we have all these pockets of things that needs to align for workers to actually enjoy decent work in the workplace. Yes.
Anyway, I feel like there's a lot. There's a lot that we don't understand about this particular world of labor law and what it means for us and how we can, make sure that things are working well for us. Our rights are actually being upheld. Yeah, it feels like,
even basics like hours of work. How many people work for more than 54 hours a week, and all that. You find like even the most basic rights in terms of access, not so many people can actually access. And especially if you're outside the formal. Even, for example, if you're in the formal and you do overtime, most of the time they are not paid the overtime. And so that becomes also like a challenge.
You, especially in this industry. Hapo najua our filmmakers are nodding their heads when it comes to overtime, and it's one of the biggest challenges we have as filmmakers. Like when there's a film you're producing and you're supposed to work between 6 and 6 in the evening. But then at midnight
you're still here on set. Imagine.
And even like ukijaribu kwenda kuambia producer ati the following day you're don't
fired.
Have work,
exactly.
You're fired and you're replaced.
So if you have, like, for example, for the producers, just taking the example that you said, if they are organized, let's say in a guild or a union and all that, and they even reach to a level that they can have collective bargaining, or even not collective bargaining, then you're fired. Then they take up your case and they start pursuing it on your behalf. Then your voice will not be alone. It will now be backed up by the solidarity of other producers or other filmmakers in the space. So it's just a matter of now looking at, and there are so many violations anyway, right, left, and center. But then first, people need to be empowered in terms of what are their rights. I was in such a interesting discussion about actors, and there were like so many red flags in terms of a contract. And then someone asked, and then someone just like cautioned, be careful of raising these things because you'll be blacklisted. And in my head, I'm thinking, you're empowering people, but they cannot do anything about it at their level because they will lose their jobs.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, you can even be empowered and know, okay, fine, I have a right, but I cannot even mention it because I need this gig, because I need I need like a right to livelihood.
Yes.
But then when you're organized, then you're able to push. You do not necessarily speak on yourself.
Yes.
Then people know that in Kenya, there's actually a standard. And once, for example, the issue of overtime, it has to be paid, or either the filmmakers guild will come after you, or the filmmakers union will come after you. I know that we don't have a filmmakers union, but something like that.
There was a conversation about a guild. I don't know if it went through or it works. Does it work? 40?
It's an association.
It's an association.
Yeah, an association.
Yeah, but there was a guild for actors. I don't know if
there's an actors guild.
Does it work?
Yeah, I think they revived their work recently. The Pitaka, I think it's the person behind it. There are so many things that need to be done, but it needs a lot of strategy and all that, and empowering. And I think they've already started like a good job in terms of empowering actors. What are the things in terms of contract? What are the red flags? These issues of perpetuity, clauses.
Say it again, please. Say it louder. That word. It has traumatized everybody. Anyone in the creative industry.
As we are talking about, for example, the creative economy or the content creators who intersect in the creative economy. They are creatives, they are in the creative economy, but also intersect at the digital economy.
Yes.
You find the space that they work in. Sometimes they work on platforms. There's actually an interesting case that is going on in terms of content creators being pushing for rights of recognition as workers for platforms, because it's through their existence and through their labor that the platforms are there, that they're existing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what could be the responsibility that platforms needs to take in terms of ensuring protection, in terms of even beyond just protection, like, for example, social protection? Can they be in a position, like, what are the creative ways that content creators can also like have access to social protection, for example? If you're going for maternity, you don't want like now that you've gone for maternity and you cannot produce content, then you cannot earn, because that's what it means.
That is the current state.
Exactly.
If you're not uploading content, my friend, you're not making money.
You're not making money. Exactly. So how do we ensure that these workers are actually protected from these experiences that they're having? And we need to look at now labor law, not from a lens of the first industrial revolution perspective, when we had industries, everybody is in a workspace. Nowadays, everybody is just everywhere. Marketing department, I used to be like a department, which is thinking about billboard there, an advertisement there. Who are doing now the marketing? It's the content creators, They're getting in contractual relationship with brands and all that. And now when you look at the contract, there's so many violations, things that they should not even sign on. There was one content creator who was telling me that she received 100-pager contract. 100-pager. What? And she was shocked, like, why am I being given like 100-page contract? Exactly. And for them, that already was a red flag. At least they had the leverage. Sometimes I hear that even content creators, that sometimes you have to sign immediately. Like you don't even have, like you're not given time to go through like a contract and then give
It's sent
your
to you and you're supposed
exactly
to sign
you
and
sign
send
it.
back. Yes.
Sometimes you even call and then you just shown the last page or the money and the last page, not knowing what you're giving out. And then she
and
realized
sometimes if you don't sign on time, it's the contract goes to the next
to someone
content
else.
creator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what kind, you see, that is pure exploitation because it means that you don't even have a leverage in terms of bargaining for negotiating for better conditions. Sometimes you give all your rights altogether. Data protection laws are violated even in the contracts and all that. You don't even know. There's no even consent. But the fact that you signed without necessarily reading
and understanding
then
the
you're
content.
bound. Exactly. Sometimes I've had people saying that, and which is very illegal, is that you cannot even join what is it called? You cannot join a union. You know, that is even like unconstitutional in itself. You know, like there are so many steps that now the contract, you have now to be very careful with the contract. But sometimes, as I said, can you really raise these issues? Because it's a matter of asking yourself, there's unemployment, you need this job, you need the money and all that. So what are you choosing? Are you choosing just to be blacklisted? As people I've had like so many people have been blacklisted just because of raising issues that are very important that needs to be addressed. Sometimes there are no clauses even to do with royalties. You just give, literally it's just giving yourself away.
Those are some of the challenges that you're experiencing in the creative economy. There's still a lot that is not working, and out of fear of not wanting to be blacklisted and not and losing work, you just decide to most of us just end up, signing up to the dotted lines, and you're like, at least I'll have the money. Whatever happens, but I will deal with it. And
now you can imagine, and now you can imagine a woman now who's going through now different like phases. Now you're either dealing with work-life balance, you have kids and all that, you're a caregiver and all that. Now you have to choose. You have all these responsibility just because you're a woman, and then you are still supposed to perform under these violations and all that, but then you just have to keep pushing. Then it provides a space where women are experiencing the world of work in a different way. And the struggles just continues, and sometimes they give up a lot of themselves just maybe for the sake of the kids, because at the end of the day, if you don't go to that work, then your kids watalalanja.
It's true.
So that becomes now a matter of balancing, which should not be the case. And that's why it's important to look now at the law again. How do we ensure that there are protections in place to protect these workers? So
I'm just curious, from everything that I've heard you talk about, I'm wondering, for somebody who's interested, because I'm like, I think I would want to read more about the labor laws and what they say when it comes to me as a woman who's in the workplace. Naeza enda nisome wapi?
So there's so many reports that have been done. I mean, even if, for example, just recently we launched, we call it Taken for a Ride 3 from the International Lawyers Assisting Workers Network. So that's where we've now looked at the digital economy. The first issue that we did was just looking at the e-hailing, just looking at all the legal issues that are there, the gaps that are there, the litigations that have been there around the globe. And it's just in our website. And then it's just summaries in terms of what are the missing things in terms of the digital economy. But just before I move, just to answer before I answer your question, is that this year, the International Labour Organization is discussing, actually not this year, right now in June, just in next week.
Yes.
There's going to be a discussion around the digital economy. So it will be a standard setting discussion. The International Labour Conference is going to discuss a possible standard, and we hope that we are going to have a convention, because a convention will be binding for the digital economy. So the platforms and all that, in terms of the role, the way to regulate who's a labor platform worker, how are they supposed to be protected, how are they supposed to have access to fundamental rights and freedoms at work. All that discussion will be happening just in June.
Are we part of those conversations?
Yeah.
Like if there's a convention, are you getting content creators to come and be a part of that convention?
Yeah, so at the ILO, so what happens, the ILO is a UN body where you have employers, workers' organizations, and governments. So they sit to discuss in a social dialogue, tripartite setting to discuss the issues around the world of work and to set standards at that level. So from now workers' perspective, whom will you have as your representative? Now we have trade unions representing. Also we'll be having, I think, NGOs. And then this has been a continuous conversation since, especially last year, there was a lot of conversations around the digital economy and the gaps and all that. And this is now the reality that we are living in, yet it's not regulated whatsoever. So like, how now do we start regulating the sector? So that is the conversations that will be had in the International Labour Conference in Geneva. So I'm hoping that we'll have a standard. And then now after we have a standard, a convention, hopefully, then now we can start about talking about Kenya ratifying the same and like now seeing rights being adopted. But even at the Kenya level, for example, there's been like conversations around the digital economy, and I'm sure that you've heard about the conversation. But up to now, we don't have like concrete policy adaptation, especially from a labor perspective in terms of protection of workers. It's still almost a new area in terms of, for example, if you talk about social protection, if you're a content creator, how would social protection look like for you? Apart from it being voluntary, are there ways that we can make social protection accessible to everyone without necessarily like pushing the burden just to the worker alone? For example, you get sick and all that, you start doing mchango and all that because you cannot afford and all that. You go for maternity, then it means that you don't even have protection. So can the platforms that you work for be responsible in terms of, okay, you've been monetized. So out of this amount that you're getting X, can 1% contribution from now that platform that is giving you money go to your account, for example? And it becomes a social protection thing. So recently, as I was explaining now, in this last report, we were just looking at micro-taskers, the labelers, the people who are every day, like they work, for example, for remote task and all that. So they label, they help machines to learn. For example, the robots that clean and all that. So we're just looking at the experiences and the violations that are there, and also the gaps, and how now do we fill in on those gaps, and what are the cases globally that have been happening. So that's also like a resource. And recently I even had the digital border driver saying that they read some of our reports and actually they helped them to formulate a petition to government to be recognized as the digital border guys, to be recognized as workers and under the laws, to be protected under the laws. So if you just go, for example, and Google, maybe, because if I tell anyone to go and read the Employment Act, I will be doing such a disservice to that person.
Because we won't understand the language,
exactly,
right?
Yes, exactly. So there are different reports that are out there. We've done some on discrimination, like on thematic areas. We've done some on teleworking and all that. There are so many writers who've done like reports. Organizations that like the International Labour Organization has done reports around rights and protections and all that from a more global, but sometimes even at the country level and all that. So I think there's a lot of information, and access nowadays has been made almost possible. And of course, I can always be contacted for any information.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like it is a lot. Like we really, like personally as Judy, I feel like, hey, I think this is something I would want to read a bit more on, to honestly just have even like the slightest
The
understanding,
basics.
the basics of what it is that it says in regards to what I do as a woman who's working.
Yeah.
as we wind up the conversation, so for that woman who's watching us now,
Yeah.
anasikizi maneno zote, sexual harassment, sijui maternity leave, and they're in their place of work, they're feeling very unseen and unheard.
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
I think the first thing is not to ignore the feeling, because the feeling can be out of so many things. It can be external, but also it can be internal.
Yeah.
Internal in a sense that it could be burnout, it could be something to do with your mental state and all that you need to slow down, you need to change tactics, you need, but also it could be like you've outgrown the space.
Yeah.
That's why you feel the way you're feeling. So you need to almost do an audit of yourself and the feeling to settle, to let the feeling settle in and to start auditing this feeling. Why is it that I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling?
Yeah.
Is it because that I've outgrown the position and I need to move to another position? But then also you need mentorship. I always say that mentorship is important.
It is.
Because it gives you like another perspective that you do not necessarily have as a woman.
Yeah.
So you need someone to walk with you in a journey. It could be a mentor, it could be a life coach.
Yeah.
A life coach is much, I think, broader. So a mentor may be like specific on one thing, but then a life coach maybe would look at a broader perspective, look like your family and all that. So if you have someone who's walking with you the journey, then they will be in a position to understand, is it time for you to move on? Is it time either to upgrade your course or something like that? Or is it something that is happening to you in that workspace that is not right, that needs to be changed?
Yeah.
And then now you either have to call it out or you have now to form a strategy. If you're in a union, then you can go to your union. If you're in an association, then you brainstorm around what are the issues, or the HR, or even all that. But then I think also in terms of recognizing that the feeling first, and then also recognizing that you have the capacity, because at times it feels as if you question yourself for what maybe you feel that you're not delivering as a person. So having that, I think audit is very important, and mentorship and life coach, but also community. I believe in community. I don't believe that you can exist as a woman in an island or as a lone person. So you need that community. It could be the workplace community, like you're organized in a trade union or in an association or in a guild or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
It could be a community of people that you built in terms of the workspace that you're in. It could be like women content creators, for example. The Transport Workers Union organizes the e-hailing workers. And they have even what are they called? I don't know why I've forgotten that, because it's always so exciting to hear them that they've organized themselves as women as part of the union. But then in this space, then they discuss their everyday struggles. Then they discuss the kind of violations that they see. They give each other, like they are there to keep each other company, but also like to address some of the violations that they are facing each and every day as a e-hailing women drivers.
Yeah.
So having that community is very important, and also to know, of course, when to say no or whether to say yes and all that, and also being visible, because sometimes I don't know whether it's cultural or something, then as a woman you're supposed to be modest. You're not supposed to raise difficult conversations.
You're supposed to be loud.
You're not supposed to be loud, even if you know very well.
Yeah.
For example, there's something that you know very well. This is not right. I think there's another way that we can do it better. But then because you've been taught to be modest, quote unquote, then you do not raise your voice. So it's also finding your voice. And after doing the audit, then you'll be in a position to say, okay, fine, it's because that I do not raise my voice, or even I do not believe in my skills in terms of public speaking and all that. So you have a point, yes, but you do not want to raise it.
Yes.
Or if you raise it, I remember, I don't know where I was, and the person moderating the meeting was like, I want to see like your hands straight, because so many of the time people will be like, I want to raise that issue, but I'm not so sure about it. So you'll just be halfway. So like just recognizing the patterns around you and knowing when to push, when to reflect back. Is it internal? Is it external? And then what do I need to do? Yeah.
I like that. An internal audit of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But when all is said and done, I must say that the world for us women is much, much better than it was a few years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are here.
We are here.
We are having this conversation. You know, I think some 100 years ago we would not even be able to have this conversation. Exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's been a milestone. It's been a milestone, and we even have countries that even recognize menstrual leaves, for example, because there's a recognition that during menstruation women are exposed to certain kind of pains that do not necessarily, it's almost like a sickness, so they need that leave. And you know what we forget is that when you create this space where it's safe, it doesn't have violence and harassment, you have like all this protection, you can go for leave, you can actually try to balance work and life and all that, then your productivity shoots. And then you become even a more productive person in the policy making space, in the space like this where we are making this conversation. You're not here thinking, mtoto wangu hajakula, I don't know. I don't need kutoka niende nikafanye sijui ABC and D, because you're a caregiver and all that. If for example you have a breastfeeding kid, because if for example maternity in Kenya is 90 days, and then of course kids breastfeed beyond the 90 days, then does the workplace have does the workplace have the breastfeeding place
Station,
place and then do you have like you know, there are some companies who even like go ahead and provide like a what is it called, a nursery kind of a thing. So at the end of the day, you're actively involved in the whatever production that you're in, and then that maximizes on your productivity.
That's true. That's true. So my take home from this conversation is that I need to go and educate myself a bit more on this particular topic. I need to go talk to Chatty. That's ChatGPT. I need to go Google. I need to go. Yes. And when I feel like I have a bit of information, I would honestly like to have another conversation with you, where we sort of now go maybe a bit deeper to truly understand and try to understand, but at the same time, while still simplifying this information in the conversation.
And it could even be thematic, you know, like could start with the Employment Act. It's occupational health and safety issues. It's labor relations. It's like a whole scope. It's discrimination. You know, like it could be like very specific. So it also depends on what you're looking for. And as I've said, there are so many reports, and there's a need. And there are some organizations that are continually doing awareness raising for workers. Trade unions, that is part of their core job to create the awareness. Just recently I saw the Actors Guild is also like doing awareness raising in terms of the space and different things, negotiating and all that. But then there's also like a need, as you said, like there are so many things that we didn't even touch on that affect women in the world of work, and of course the larger workforce generally.
But thank you so much, Jacqueline. I feel like even in our next conversation, if I have educated myself a bit and I understand the basics, I will even have the right questions to ask. Then you can even pick like a particular, what have you called them?
Thematic area.
Yes, thematic areas. But this was fun. I have learned a few things, and honestly, we will have this conversation again. I feel like it's one that needs to continue. There's a lot that we need to break down for us, the wananchi wa kawaida, to understand the wananchi wa kawaida and the workers
Yes,
We are the workers.
Yeah, you are
yes,
the
for us
workers.
to understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
I will make sure that I have left Jacqueline's contacts in the description box for anyone who would be willing, who has questions.
Any issue, yeah.
Like someone who watches this conversation and feels like, Apple, I need help. So I'll make sure that her contact information is in the description box. So please check that. And kama kawaida, if you have any questions from today's conversation, please ask them in the comment section. And I'll make sure that Jacqueline answers them at some point. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Karibu sana.
And until our next conversation on thematic areas. That one I won't forget. It's bye from us. Bye-bye.